What's up, duelists? Oh my god, what a weekend. Just got back from YCS LA. Oh my goodness. I'm a little bit sleepy. Not gonna lie, the drive was a lot, but you know what? I had an amazing time. I met so many cool people. I saw so much great Edison. I got to see the format really thrive. It was insane. There was over 100 Edison side events fired over this weekend in LA alone at YCS 250, and I know there were plenty more fired in London as well. It was the number one most represented side event at the YCS. At the YCS, that's what it is. That's what I'm talking about today. The YCS. Gotta talk about the YCS. Okay, Keegan. Okay, Keegan. Snap back into it. Snap back into it. You're a content creator. You gotta make this video. Okay. Okay, I've got to get in character. Got to get in character. Okay, the YCS. Yes, that's right. The YCS. I went to the YCS. Edison format big. Edison format big. There were a bajillion people there playing it. I also played it there, and I also documented a lot of other people playing it. If I met you, hi, welcome back. You guys are awesome. Seriously, I had a bunch of great interactions. I had some interesting interactions, but we'll get into that in a second. First things first, before we get into the recap and the deck lists and everything, I want to just ask you guys a quick question of the day. What would you do if this is your opening hand, this right here in front of you, and you're facing off against frogs, and you're going first? So, you know your opponent's playing frogs. This is your opening hand. You're going first. What is it you're doing? Question of the day. We're trying it out. I'm not sure if it's a cool thing or not. Answer coming shortly. All right, into the recap. YCS LA recap. First things first, what do we do? We drove there. Drove. Traffic was miserable. Oh my gosh. LA traffic is not fun. It is not fun at all. I had a pretty good car full of cool people. I drove there with 10FD from the Discord. He's also a Vegas local, and I drove there with my friend Paige, who is a legend. She's honestly helped me out a lot behind the scenes, more than I can even say. She's a genius, honestly. She's a social media genius. She's a content creation genius, and she's just got one of the best sense of humors in any human being I've ever met, which is super cool. About that, well, we'll get into that. We drove there, had a blast driving there. We got there, we met up with Monster Gamer, I think, and we met up with Asian Without from the Discord, and one of our mods from the Discord, Angle, and a few other people who I didn't know, and we had like some sushi and just like chilled out the entire Friday night. Like, you know, we went around Little Tokyo and did some fun stuff too. It was really chill because I wanted to make sure I was up early for YCS LA so I can actually like meet people and play in the event. Vegas, it was more about like hanging out with my friends, and I didn't really get a chance to meet people. I know a lot of people wanted to meet me at Vegas and didn't get a chance to, so it was pretty cool. It was pretty cool that we were able to have kind of a chill night. Unfortunately, I did get food poisoning the night before YCS LA, but very fortunately, it was only like a few hour thing. And even though I was on like little sleep, I was able to make it to the YCS right at doors. So it was very lucky that it wasn't worse than that, and it didn't just like ruin my entire weekend. So very nice. We got into the YCS right at doors. Basically, we had what did we do? We just met up with a bunch of people. I just started talking to people. I had a bunch of cards I wanted to sell because Edison staples are hot right now. And that's another thing I'm going to do. I'm going to do a more serious market watch video later this week on what was selling at the YCS, what wasn't selling, what vendors were paying for, what was in demand with regards to like what people were trading for. I'm going to do like a really in-depth market watch later this week. So if that's something you're interested in, let me know. So we drove there. We got to the YCS. We met a bunch of people. And this is where like the first thing I want to talk about is Paige was with us on day one, and people were really weird towards her. I think in general, which sucks because I think obviously, you know, it's a gaming con. Obviously, you're gonna get a couple of people who don't normally come out of their room, but it was a lot more than we thought it was gonna be. There was a lot of like harassment, a lot of like really like insensitive and shitty things said to her, and then on top of that, a lot of shitty things said to me about her, which is not cool. It's in general just not cool. And that was the one thing that was kind of like, that was one of my biggest gripes with the weekend. One thing I would say, like if you watch these videos or if you if you see like girls at an event or something, even if you think the girl's attractive, even if you want to say whatever, just treat it like a workplace environment, treat it like a professional environment. I think that would go a long way in making the scene more comfortable for women to be there. That's something that I really dislike about Yu-Gi-Oh! I think that the player base hasn't really grown up from the no girls allowed type vibe, and I think that this game would really benefit from having girls be a part of it, because girls are awesome and they're usually really, really talented. I mean, a lot of the girl players that I played against are some of the best players in the world. Like, I don't want to like get into it, but yeah, and it's just sad that they don't want to come to events because of the things they have to deal with. And Paige didn't end up coming back on the second day because of this. And it's kind of a weird thing, you know? It's kind of a weird thing because like what do you do? Like in the moment, like you can tell someone that's not cool, but like eventually that just gets tiring after the whole day. And I had people like even interrupting me mid-match in my side event pools, like saying stuff about Paige. And it was just like really weird. Paige is like honestly a largely responsible for Edison growing because of how much she's helped me behind the scenes and stuff, and how much I've been able to bounce ideas off of her. So it's like kind of weird. You wouldn't say this stuff about me, so why are you saying it about her type thing? That was enough about that. You guys know this. You get it. You get the point. Moving on. Okay, let's put a little point there. 2, don't be sexist, I guess. That's what I would say. That's my that's my big one. That's my big one for this weekend. Big takeaway. Okay, next thing. I entered side events. I did enter side events. So let's talk about those. So the first side event I entered, I wasn't able to enter a side event until like pretty far into day 1. I entered with the quick draw deck. Quick draw laminated foil deck. Laminated foil. So I entered with the quick draw laminated foil deck, and I really like this deck. I think it's a blast to play. When we were testing it, it had really powerful moments where I just drew broken and the other deck couldn't really win. But it also had some hands that oftentimes the number one contributor to it being bad was Volcanic Shell. And then it had some hands where like in the late game, I just didn't have enough card advantage. There was like a bit of difficulty accruing card advantage without finding my one Treeborn Frog or without finding like Future Fusion specifically. Outside of those 2 cards, it was really hard to put together like significant +1s, especially if I was bricking. Like if I was drawing multiple Shell or multiple Mali, or if I was drawing Mali Stratos at the same time, it was really hard for me to put together card advantage in the way that like the regular quick draw decks have Avarice. So my first pool, I went, first pool, I entered with this deck for first pool. I played against the mirror match and I lost 0-1. And it was kind of tough because like we got to the late game, right? And I was doing some good stuff. Game 1, I just bricked like crazy and I just died. Game 2, I was able to beat him with Drill Warrior. I basically like just rode the Drill Warrior the whole game. And he was really cool actually. He was talking about the way I used Drill Warrior and how I like basically just played to reuse Drill Warrior over and over again and get back my best monster. And I was able to outgrind him just because I had an early drill off of Volcanic Shell and Quick Draw. And so that worked out really well. So I won game 2. And then game 3, I just lost because he had Avarice and I didn't have Crow. So it's kind of tough. And that was that's just how it goes, right? Like I'm playing a strictly worse deck in the mirror match, and that's just going to happen some percentage of the time. And that's cool. Like I knew going into this event that playing that deck, I was probably not going to do super hot with it. But I did say that I would play at least 2 side events with it. So we'll get into that. After that, we ended up going out. I think we went out with a bunch of other YouTubers to dinner. Me and Monster Gamer did. We went to dinner with a bunch of YouTubers, and we had like Korean barbecue, and it was pretty good. Shout out to those guys. And I think we went to a rave. Yeah, we went to a rave, and it was at 1720. We went to go see Kid, which was fucking cool. And then what else happened? I think we just went back after the rave and we tested till hella late because I really wanted to get a feel for the quick draw deck down, and I wanted to like see if I could tune it at all to make it a little bit better against Blackwings, because there were so many Blackwings day 1. Like there were pods that were just like 4 Blackwings, 4 Blackwings, 4 Blackwings in almost every pod. So I was like kind of like, okay, I just got to tune this a little bit better for Blackwings. I did end up making one change. I added an additional card. I added a 44th card. I added Rise of the Storm Monarch, a second copy to the main deck, because I just wanted more Monarchs, like more Monarch density. And that was basically going to be my game plan against Blackwings, was like try to use the Monarchs to beat them, more or less. So I ended up making that change the night before. We tested the shit out of the deck, and then I also tested the Dragon deck a lot, and I'm going to get into the list and what we talked about, or what we tested here, and I'm also going to tell you what I ended up doing for this hand. So against Frogs, this was my finals match. I was going first. I have this hand, and I actually ended up gold sarking for brain control. I don't know if a lot of people would have done this, but I gold sarked for brain control, and then I just set Book of Moon and passed. Because as long as I can get in this red med white knight hit, he can never summon a Monarch. Because then I can brain control the Monarch and just kill it, more or less. And if Frogs opens, summon Swap Frog, they can send Treeborn Frog, and then they'll bounce the Swap Frog. I can get in that 5,800 damage first turn of the game. And then on the third turn of the game, brain control represents lethal every point from that point. So that was my game plan. And the reason I set the Book of Moon and passed is because I don't want to expose my Wyvern on the first turn to like Soul Exchange or something crazy like brain control. I need to hold this. It's basically a combo piece. I need to hold it so I can special my red men. On his turn, I'm losing my train of thought. What was I talking about? Oh, yeah. On his turn, if he goes for Substitute, however, like if he has a way to special summon a monster and go for Substitute, let's say 1-for-1, I want to be able to book the Substitute so he can't dupe lock me on the first turn of the game. So I set Book of Moon, and I just passed the turn. That's basically why I set the Book of Moon and passed. I ended up drawing, the next card I drew was Quackimera Drago, and I was able to just red med Drago twice, and the brain control ended up being lethal on the turn that I got it. But I was wondering what you guys would have done with that hand. Hopefully I'll read the comments and see. But let's go ahead and get into this deck list. Let's talk about it a little bit, because this is the deck list that I was testing the night before Sunday, Saturday night, with Monster Gamer. We tested the fucking shit out of this list. Basically, I tested everything under the sun that we thought might be worth testing. The sideboard actually feels really good. I'll get into it in a second, what goes in, what goes out, etc. I tried Prime Material Dragon, I tried Compulsory in the main, I tried a bunch of stuff that I've been like working on, and we came to the conclusion that this deck doesn't really lose to anything that isn't just like a fast Caius. Otherwise, the deck just beats everything else. And the only way to really deal with the fast Caius, it's not Prime Material Dragon, it's not Compulsory Evacuation Device, it's like you need D-Prison. You just need DD Warrior Lady. You just need those cards that can like keep that Monarch off your back so you can like have the time necessary to put together your red med combos. A lot of this deck is just about buying time. I didn't want to play any like aggressive stuff because eventually you're going to find Gold Sark, which is going to find you your missing pieces, or you're just going to draw all the pieces to an OTK combo really easily. So, or not really easily, but just like, as long as you have time with this deck, you feel like you can't really lose against anything. So the concept behind all of the traps and the trap lineup and going for the Rhoda for the 4th DD Warrior Lady was just, I need to buy time. And that's exactly what happened in my matches in my side event with this deck. I ended up playing one more side event. So Sunday, I entered a side event. Sunday, quick draw, laminated, whatever. And then I went 0-1 again. So I played 2 with the deck. I bricked really hard in game 1. I drew double Mally, double Shell, double Monarch in the first game. And the second game, I beat him. And the third game, he had, I believe, Macrocosmos, which was really difficult to play through. So, yeah, a lot of people were playing, like, really hateful tech, and I just got paired against it round 1 with a deck that it dealt with it all right, but it just struggled with the rest of the stuff after it, and it was kind of tough to play given my draws. So, yeah, that's just going to happen. I decided I would enter one more side event over the weekend, and I entered with the Dragon deck. So, I ended up playing against some of the deck's worst matchups. It's funny because this list is really tuned to play against Blackwings, and there were 0 Blackwing players in my pod, which is silly, but it happens. Yeah, I ended up playing against some people. One of my opponents, I had kind of a negative experience with one of my opponents because he was playing Quick Draw, and I noticed before game 3 that he didn't have sideboard sleeves, and I asked him if he had extra sleeves for his sideboard, because he was missing sleeves on a few of his cards. And I think that there's like an issue with that. I think you have to have your whole deck sleeved. I didn't call a judge about it, but I think the guy was more likely than not like had more sideboard cards than he was saying he had, basically. But I was confident in my deck, and I was confident in the matchup, and I didn't feel the need to really I didn't feel the need to really call a judge on it. I felt like I could beat him even if he had a few more sideboard cards than what was necessary. The guy was not familiar with a lot of my cards. He had to read White Knight Dragon in game one, so I was just like, I'll probably just end up beating him on the back of that. He was really rude. He was really rude to me. When I asked him if he had extra sleeves, he like just like cussed at me and said some other shit, and I was just like, that's fucking weird. And then I beat his ass, thankfully, and said GG's, and he didn't say it back, and he just sat there. And then I had to move over to play the finals afterward, which was, yeah, that was weird. It was really wild. It was actually pretty funny because, like, despite him reading all of my cards, like, throughout game one and not knowing what, like, a lot of things did, like, he had to read some stuff that, like, he had to read White Knight Dragon, he had to read Kwaki Mirror Drago, he had to read, like, cards that have been around forever. He was, like, pretty adamant on telling me, like, that he played during the time period and he was, like, an OG player and that, you know, he was coming back to the game, and he was, like, being really elitist about it. He obviously didn't know who I was because I obviously you wouldn't be talking like that to me specifically because obvious reasons. But it was just really funny. I just hope people aren't like that to people who aren't me, because normally people are really nice to me, but I don't know what the experience is like for the average player. This guy was like, he was just kind of being a dick. Thankfully, all my other opponents, I played a lot of friendly matches. I played against a lot of really cool people over the weekend, just for fun. Everybody was tight except this one guy. So yeah, just had to bring that up. Just if you're an OG player and you're coming back, like, it's a good thing that new players are playing this. Don't be an asshole to them, even if you think that they are new players. When in reality, if you're the guy who's reading Kwaki Mirror Drago and White Knight Dragon, you're probably the newer player, let's be real. So yeah, guy got wrecked. Sideboard, let's talk about the sideboard. I had double Cyber Dragon for machines. There was a good amount of Machina, like Lightsworn Machina going around, so I just wanted to make sure I had the Cyber Dragons. I have Yamato Dragon and Light and Darkness. I wanted Light and Darkness for Quick Draw. I also wanted it for machines, so I was thinking about just like having Light and Darkness as a Omni Negate type card that I could bring in. I also wanted it for jank. There was a lot of jank shit, like people were playing Burn, people were playing Di-Fi, people were playing Gravekeepers, stuff like that. I just wanted to have Light and Darkness Dragon so I could like have a really insane bomb versus decks that don't really have built-in inherent outs. And then same thing with Yamato Dragon. Yamato Dragon's a bomb versus frogs. It's basically like a draw X versus frogs. And the game plan with Yamato Dragon was to side up higher on the traps, so I would have more trap cards in my deck so I could set more of my hand before I went for the Yamato Dragon. So against frogs, what I was doing was I was boarding in Yamato, boarding in Double Trap Hole, boarding in Royal Oppression, and I was boarding out, I think, Heavy Storm, Mystical Space Typhoon. I think I boarded out, I don't remember, I think I boarded out Double Starlight Road versus frogs too. Maybe not. Maybe I kept the Starlight Roads. But we went, I was basically going up one trap card so I could have extra cards to set that were live. I think I might have been boarding in the Rivalry too. You know what? This is a terrible recap because I don't remember shit. Anyway, Nox, we needed those for Quick Draw. Quick Draw's a really bad, not bad matchup, but it can be annoying. Like, Raiko Caius is kind of the value engine, or Hamster Caius, but Drago does a good job against Hamster specifically. It's more Raiko Caius. Raiko Caius on the play is the value engine that can give this deck trouble because we don't have a lot of raw +1s. The best +1s in the deck are like Torrential Tribute, Future Fusion, and like that's it pretty much. Those are the only like real +1s that we have in the entire deck. Mirror Force 2 kind of, but people can play around Mirror Force a lot easier than they can play around Torrential Tribute. So it's kind of hard for us to deal with decks that are just like looping +1s against us if they're going like Raiko Caius Avarice or Raiko Caius mill a value card off a Raiko. It's kind of hard to deal with. So I think you just need 2 Nox to deal with those types of decks. And then we also had Double Smashing because, like I said, the way this deck loses is just like a fast Caius or a fast threat is just like hitting you. And you need to have immediate, responsive removal. You can take like 1 or 2 hits, obviously, because you start at 8,000, of course. But you do need to be able to remove the threat and then just like reset to neutral and then buy yourself more time. The whole point of this deck is like if the card isn't contributing to a combo kill, like it's a dragon that you can banish for red med or a dragon that stays in play or whatever, it needs to buy you time. And that's why I went down on the compulsory evacuation. I moved it to the side. A lot of the times when I had compulsory, I just wished it was deprison because if you have Drago plus compulsory, it's not that good. Because your opponent can't really synchro that much. Like, Blackwing players can't really synchro that much. They can't Blizzard. They can't Special Gale, that kind of thing. You'd rather just have D-Prison to hard remove the threat than the compulsory to not remove the threat. And then D-Prison's also better against Caius. And also they can't like activate Vayu when Drago's in play. So compulsory just like loses a lot of equity. Like Malicious can't be activated. Mizuki can't bring back Goblin Zombie. Plague can't come out. It just doesn't really combine super well for when you have stuck Drago versus the synchro matchups. I did side the compulsory for the synchro matchups because obviously like it's a great card versus decks that are trying to synchro, but it didn't end up really coming up as much as the third D-Prison did in testing, and I just needed the hard removal. Plus, like, in the situations where you are losing, like when your opponent does slam a Caius, it's so much better to top deck a D-Prison than a compulsory. Compulsorying a Caius feels so fucking bad. Double Trap Hole, I had Pulling the Rug, but I needed extra cards for Black Wings. Instead of Pulling the Rug, I went with Trap Hole. Trap Hole serves a similar function against Monarchs, where I can play really passively. I can just set one Trap Hole, and they can never really play the game. Like, they can summon a Monarch, but then I'm just going to Trap Hole it. And then if I draw another Trap Hole, I can just set that, right? And I can just play this 1-for-1 game with their Monarchs till they're kind of, like, out of Monarchs or till I've drawn my combo, which is basically exactly how I played the Monarch matchup, more or less. And yeah, Pulling the Rug is obviously better against Monarchs because it can help you when you have an established board. But Trap Hole, it works just the same with regards to the actual game plan in the matchup. One Rivalry, one Oppression. I didn't want to draw multiples of these, basically. So I just boarded in 1-1. That's it. I just didn't want to draw multiples of them. Rivalry did a lot of work. It helped me versus Quick Draw. Royal Oppression did a lot of work. It helped me versus Frogs. And then Double Dust Tornado. I just like this card. I think it's important to have catch-alls. This deck can actually be kind of weak to some back row, heavy back row decks, so I think you do need to have Double Dust. I was even thinking about Giant Trune, but I couldn't find the space for it. It would probably come in over the Compulse, because I was having trouble thinking about where I would side in Compulse, besides against, like, Vayu and maybe Zombies, but yeah, I was having trouble thinking about where I would side it in with the deck. Anyway, deck's perfect. I think it's amazing. I think this is, like, easily one of the top 3 decks in the format, especially when you know what you're doing. If you know what you're doing, this deck feels unbeatable. And if you draw even slightly well, it's just the best deck by far. So yeah, that's that. I ended up winning my pod with this deck. I was very happy with that win. We ended up going to Melrose after that. We ended up going to Melrose, which was really fun. It was just Paige and I, actually, and we, like, stumbled into like a modeling thing that was happening, and then they, like, thought we were models or whatever. No, they didn't think we were models. They, like, just started putting clothes on us, basically, and, like, started taking our picture, and, like, it was hella funny, and we just kind of rocked with it, and we got some really cool clothes at Melrose, so that was really sick. And there's this really awesome sandwich shop called Ghost Sandos on Melrose, which is, oh my god, it's insane. They have a sandwich there called the Santa Monica. Oh my god, it is nuts. It's so fire. It's so fire. It's the best sandwich I've ever eaten. Literally every time I go to LA, I gotta get it because it's just so fire. Holy fuck. So that was super awesome. And then we went back and we met up with some of the Discord guys at Little Tokyo again and just, like, hung out for a little bit before we ended up driving back to Vegas, which was more or less the weekend. So let's see. What was the recap? Oh yeah, last but definitely not least, the other deck lists. I, throughout the weekend, was trying to talk to as many people who won their pods as possible and get pictures, videos of their deck lists. I created a thread on Twitter. Follow me on Twitter at E3Yugioh. I created a thread on Twitter where I was posting, as you can see here, every single deck that I could that won a pool. So if you get decks that win a pool, ooh, there's me. There's me. Cool. Yeah, there are a lot of cool lists here that ended up winning their pools. Follow me on Twitter. 5. Follow me on Twitter. I'm trying to think of what else. Oh, a little bit of spoilers. If you made it to the end of this video, I just want to throw this out here. Throw this out there. There are some big things happening in the future for Edison format. I've been talking to some people lately. I've been talking to a few higher ups, a few individuals, without saying too much. There's going to be some stuff in the future for Edison. There's going to be a lot of big things for Edison in the future. So the first thing I'll say is, if you want to play Paper Edison at the highest level of competition, make sure you keep October 7th open on your calendar. I'm not going to say anything more than that right now. Not going to say anything more than that, but October 7th, little birdie tells me there's going to be something pretty fucking insane for Edison format in paper. So keep that date clear, request it off. It's a few months in advance, more than a few months in advance. So not going to say anything more about that quite yet. I'm excited for the next few months. I'm excited for the IRL RBET. I'm going to be playing a lot of these first place deck lists. I'm going to be interviewing some of the players on the channel on the upcoming weeks. And yeah, just a lot of great stuff in the future. Hope to see you guys in the next video. Don't forget to subscribe, like, all that stuff. Peace.